Chateau in the
Tempted by
Palms,
Desire.
Anne
Dominion
Hampson.
by
Carol
Charlotte
Morton.
Lamb.
Jane could not
The
believe
marriage
it when her
of
beloved
Carolyn
say that
and
husband
Suzanne's
announced that he
beautiful,
wanted his
bitchy
divorce
stepmother,
so that he could marry
Celeste,
another woman.
had an eye to the
There was
main
nothing she
chance,
could
was
do
putting
about
it mildly.
So she was more than thankful.
And
for
so
the opportunity
Suzanne
of a job in
found
the
herself
workplace.
staying in one
It
of
would at
London's
least
And the
most
take her away
situation
from
was
town.
not helped by the fairly
Did also
obvious
take
fact
her
Purely
into
that
so
James
concert
was
Celeste
involved
with
with
the
another
impressive
woman.
Philip de Chamarral,
But would
a
the
man
situation
who
be
could
helped in
have
any
had
way at all if Carolyn turned her sympathy to her old friend Jake,
not for love,
who now made
but
it
to give
clear
him an
that he wanted
excuse to get rid of
far
the
more than a
possessive
friend
Yvette
to her.
Sutcliffe.
The
Jane would
feeling for
happily have
James
settled
had
for a
made
real
the marriage
engagement,
not
but
quite
she was
dead
still a
yet.
married woman, and Philippe still didn't know that.
In the hope that there was
Celeste
My
had
Heart's a
her eye on him
Dancer,
too.
Roberta Lee.
Why on earth couldn't
Melanie's
she
marriage
transfer
to
her
Timothy
attention to
Ramsay
Vidal's
had ended
even
before it
richer,
had begun,
though
when she
not
found
nearly
him
so
making love
charming,
to another girl,
brother
only hours after the
César.
wedding.
Did she go off
She
to
tried
dance?
to forget
Night
her
music.
heartbreak by devoting
Charlotte
herself to her
Lamb.
career
But
as a
when she
ballet
arrived
dancer.
there,
I bought
The
you,
unhappy episode
and
was
what
in
I
May,
buy stays
when
bought,
Timothy was
quiet,
killed, not
even if
long
it
felt
after.
proves to be
confronting
worthless.
The
the
cure
forceful
seemed
Michael
complete.
Tregout.
Steve
When Mary
Crawford
met
had
his
called
she was
told
Diane,
Lisa
and before
to
when they
have
met
every
again
intention of
after
avenging
the
himself on her
But this
in the
time,
most
with a
decisive
deeper,
way.
Their
more
relationship
sincere feeling
Sarah
than she
could
knew she'd
found
ever had
herself
for
in a very
Timothy.
unpleasant
And
Yet even
situation.
now happiness looked like
Misunderstood
eluding her,
situation
for Gregory
when he fell in
seemed,
love.
to say the
And
least,
Denny Harris.
uncertain of his feelings
And
for
now
her,
he was being
while her
equally
now
deliberately
blossoming
blind
career and its
about her
demands
friendship
was coming more and
with
more
nice,
between her and the man she
undemanding
loved.
John Lister.
Who
And
rides
yet
the tiger?
he was insisting
There is an old
that he wanted
Chinese
her
proverb
back.
which says,
And yet
"He
again
who rides
Lisa
the tiger
was
dares
finding it
not
almost
dismount."
impossible to resist
You are
it.
like that man,
Even
Senora.
knowing that
You
Steve
cannot
didn't
escape
love
from
her.
your destiny.
Only one.
Someone had said to Dominique, and she could
Why
not help
didn't he
feeling
just finish
that
it?
riding a tiger
So she'd have
accurately
another.
described the situation that had sprung up between her and Vincenti Santos. My day begins at 5 a.m. because
Each morning the bell rings at.
I wake about 7:45 to the cheery.
my secretary calls me around 8:30 and we discuss what I...
One hand reaches.
I used to be a very irregular riser, getting up any time between 9 and noon. Mainly, I think, as a reaction to...
I rely on a telephone call a lot.
the day, but I come alive at night. I get more and more excited.
8:30, my butler handyman, Bob, sees...
I always wake at that time.
Did last night. We keep a diary of my expense account. It takes me 2 hours to get out of the house. I don't eat any...
Out to stop the alarm while the...
The years I spent in a monastery where I had to get up at 5 every morning. But now I've schooled myself to wake.
In the morning, my time is so plotted and planned for me by my secretary that I...
At its clearest at daybreak, so I lie in.
To that, I do 20 minutes of meditation and I plait my own hair, although it's...
Of Capital Radio, whose frequent time checks are a great help at that time of the morning, as I don't possess a watch. My wife...
Thing or drink anything, not even orange juice, because I've usually had at least 3 dinners the night.
Other switches on the radio to an...
Up at 8.
Must not be late. I get up from 6:15 onwards. If I run, I like to get it over with about 7 a.m. Come back and...
For people who want to go to bed early. In the morning, I'm not much good.
Always much better when someone...
Camilla, who's always up long before me, Very kindly brings me breakfast in bed, tea and yogurt and the papers. I always start off with the...
Before. The reason it takes me so long to get out is the phone.
Sure that I shan't fall asleep again. 3/4 of an hour later, I wake to discover I've missed breakfast.
I wake up at 8 a.m. when the gardener buzzes me so he can take Duke, the black Labrador, out. He's one of the Queen Sandringham strain and always stays in my room at night. The Pekingese, Twee, sleeps at the end of my four-poster. My old maid, Purcell, who's been with me 33 years and is now in her 80s, comes in about 8:45 a.m. with breakfast, which Reeves, the butler, has carried upstairs for her. I get up, do my hair, and put on makeup, simply because I like looking nice, and I believe in self-discipline. I complete my face in a much more complicated way after my bath at 10:45 a.m. I don't mind admitting I wear false eyelashes. I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. An egg, my bran, I'm a great believer in bran, and a tablespoonful of honey and ginseng tea. I take all my vitamin pills, usually 70 or 80. I read 6 newspapers.
The bookcases of the attractive living room.
A special workroom.
Near the entrance hangs a drawing.
A square tower at the southwest corner of the house.
A sofa at one end of the room.
The bedroom is large, sunny.
An
The
inscribed
windows
wedding
facing
photograph.
east and south.
A room in the apartment of an old
White
friend
walls
named Ugo
and a
Dadoni.
yellow-tinged tile floor.
The windows and shutters.
2 alcoves.
The noises of the Via
A pair
Angela
of chest-high
Poliziana.
bookcases. A
2
massive
suitcases
flat-top
and
desk.
3 books.
An ordered clutter of papers and
A blue
mementos.
overstuffed chair.
An armoire with a leopard
It had
skin
no
draped
arms.
across.
Just downriver from
Old
Chelsea.
newspapers, bullfight journals,
Block of service apartments.
chunk of copper ore,
The layout and decor.
the worn skin of a lesser kudu,
Central court.
especially if sentimental value is attached.
Small, comfortable, tidy, uneccentric.
Hilltop house,
A pair of patriotic
the
prints.
Tudor period of American history,
A cottage in Suffolk.
across miles of cluttered, sprawling city.
The electric fire was on.
Dry brown hills,
His real home.
proclaiming Hollywood land in aluminium letters
His
20
rambling white
feet high.
house.
Austerity and hospitality
Cheerful, efficient, hospitable, controlled.
for children's gatherings,
Books of law and medicine.
for the studious life.
The calendar.
On the
Spacious
walls
and high
hung
ceilinged.
charcoal studies,
Edwardian taste.
the evergreen grove
A
behind the
massive
house,
carved wooden mantelpiece.
rather deep snow.
Armchairs decked in little shawls.
I only do one draft. I never do
A
any
useful
other.
trick
I
is
correct
to
as
When
I
I'm
go
working
along,
on a book
and there
or
is very
story,
little
the
correction.
half-closed
The
eyes
changes in the
are
draft are
fully
mainly
describing
deletions.
certain
Occasionally a new
characteristics.
There's no one to
paragraph goes
disturb
in.
you.
I am
Every
left
character is a
with
mixture of
two-thirds
people you
human
know.
being.
Characters
And
come to
always
me,
get
and
to
I think
work.
this is behind the Madeline business.
99%
When people are
stop.
talking to me, I
99%
feel I've heard this
discipline.
tone of voice in other
99%
circumstances.
You write until you
And at
come
the
to a
risk of
place.
seeming
He must
rude,
never be
I have to hold
satisfied
on
with
to
what
this
he does.
and chase it back until it
It
clicks
never
with someone
is
I've met
good
before.
for a candidate.
I never write except with
The
a writing
only
partner.
environment
I've never had a
the
table in my
artist
life.
uses
And I use all
is
sorts of
whatever
things.
peace,
Right on the sole
whatever
of my shoe.
solitude,
Even when I was
and
younger, I
whatever
never had a
pleasure he
desk.
can get.
I
I've never
always
had a
rewrite
writing
each
partner.
day.
I work regularly. I always work
All the
in the
wrong
morning,
environment
and then
will
again a
do
little
is
before
run his
dinner.
blood pressure.
I'm not one of those who work at
He will
night.
spend more
I
time
prefer to
being
read at
frustrated
night.
than
I usually work 4 or 5 hours a day.
My own
I
experience
keep at
has
it as
been
long
that
as
the
I
tools I
can,
need in
until
my
I feel
trade
myself going
are
stale.
paper,
Sometimes when I
tobaccos,
bog down, I
food,
start reading.
I like a
fiction
room
or
with a view,
psychology or
preferably a
history.
long
One of the
Doesn't matter
saddest
much
things
what,
is that
just to
the
borrow
only
ideas or
thing a man
materials,
can do
but simply to get started again.
The Duke walked to the window and looked out on the shimmering waters of the Neva. He could not believe that what he was feeling was not some mystic influence of Russia itself. How could he, of all people, cynical, blasé, sophisticated, feel, for a young girl, what he had never felt for a woman in the whole of his life. He stood for a long time at the window, looking out into the distance, where he could see the needle-like gold spire of the Peter and Paul fortress. Why was St. Petersburg different from any other place he had ever visited? Why was he a different person? He had no answer to his questions, and it irritated him. He'd always been so self-sufficient, so complete in himself, and yet, quite suddenly, he was a different person. A different person from the man who'd left England.
Marjoram.
Oregano leaves.
Coriander
from
seed.
Italy and Mexico.
Southern Europe.
Diced muskmelon.
Young zucchini.
Sesame seed.
Dandelion
Anise seed.
blossoms.
From a
No
plant in
stains.
southern
Timor.
Europe.
Orient.
North
Cardamom
Africa,
seed
Asia.
from Ceylon.
Grouse.
One small
Guatemala.
piece. Tamarind.
Grape
Marinade.
leaves.
Fresh
And
chives.
grapes.
Before cooking.
Scallop
Shallot.
shells. And ramekins to serve.
I think the artist has to keep moving. You're trying to render life in a way that won't bore people, and you're trying to put down what you see. I'm sorry, but I'm no good at these post-mortems. There are coroners, literary and non-literary, provided to deal with such matters. I used to play cello. My mother kept me out of school a whole year to study music and counterpoint. She thought I had ability, but I was absolutely without talent. Ultimately, politics do bore me, though I recognize they are responsible for a good deal of suffering. I distrust ideological statements of any kind. No, the writer doesn't need economic freedom. All he needs is pencil and paper. Oh, the books I read are the ones I knew and loved when I was a young man, and to which I return as to old friends. The Old Testament, Dickens, Conrad, Cervantes, Don Quixote. I read that every year, as some do the Bible. The artist doesn't have time to listen to the critics. The ones who want to be writers read the reviews. The ones who want to write don't have the time to read the reviews. Because first, I think if a man has the urge to be an artist, it is because he needs to find himself. Every writer tries to find himself through his characters, through all his writing. Kaiserling called me an imbécile de génie. That's it. I only have the natural fatigue of sitting so many hours at the typewriter. But otherwise, no. I ask my subconscious for a plot, and I always get one. does it appear in all clarity? And a deep gulf is set between heaven and earth. We disturb our original peace of mind to no purpose. The way has nothing lacking, nothing in excess. The doctrine of the void. These wrong views disappear of themselves. How shall you know the one? Both activity and quiescence are failures. The further from the truth. There is nowhere that you cannot go. We have surpassed the emptiness of things. All appear because of our ignorance. The mind is lost in a maze of complexity. Everything in the world is unblameable.